Good morning to all of you. Sorry, so sorry. It's the first time that this happened with me. But I think I liked so much the discussions yesterday in our network meeting that I decided to go to the same place. And then I arrived there, so happy. And the people, are you looking for the conference? Yes, I'm here for the conference. You are in the wrong place. No. And then a very kind lady drove me here. Well, this was my intention with this very small presentation was to open the day with all of you. Unfortunately, will not be the idea, but let's talk a little bit. In reality, my team in ICO in London and we prepared many different presentations for today. And then I decided to bring this one. Why? Because I'm not a researcher. And then I decided to talk a little bit about what we are doing as ICO, just a few slides, and to talk a little bit about trends of consumption. It will be something more in the side of anthropology and psychology than the other areas of science. These are the 4 pillars of ICO since the beginning. ICO was created in 1962 to tackle the major challenges of this sector, of the coffee sector. We have members from producing countries and also from the consuming countries. In our days, we have the representation of 96, 97% of the production in the world, and 6-7% of the consumption. Why? Because we don't have, at this moment, US with us. US goes and come back, goes and come back. And then we are in this moment without USA with us. We already had organized many different projects, and these are the areas that ICO has been working during these more than 60 years. And we are always tackling the major challenge in social, economic, since the beginning of the organization. And from 1994, also environmental challenge. This means that in our international treaties, that it's called the International Coffee Agreement, since the first one, we are addressing the major challenge of this sector. And we do this via dialogue, intergovernmental dialogues. After to become a free market, coffee went to a free market, putting together not only the governments, but also the private sector, the civil society. And at this moment, we have what we called the Coffee Public and Private Task Force, that we have everybody together, all the communities together. We started this process 5 years ago with 3,000 people, and now we have many projects as pilots in many of the countries that we are working with. Mainly, at this moment, tackling consequences of climate change, living income, that it's a key point for the producers in many countries, and related to living income, we have very close to that the involvement of the new generations in the coffee production, and also the involvement of the women in coffee production. We know that 70% of the labor in coffee is made by women. And how powerful are these girls? Almost nothing in the majority of these countries. And we are working in all of the things and also with the transparency of the value chain, because there are a lot of discussions that just, if we get a price of one cup of coffee in a coffee shop and we think about the producer, just some cents of that price it's going to the producer, but we need to not have this rationale in a very simple way. We need to think about all the costs that are involved and all the risks that are involved in all the links of this chain, but to make this very transparent, to see how to work with the intermediaries mainly. Which are their roles, their responsibilities, and how much they are getting from that, and how to make this more transparently. And during these last years, one of the points that we were forced to address, it's the new regulations. We need to help our producers with the new regulations, and we have many projects at this moment and many actions at this moment related to EUDR, and mainly EUDR and CSDDD, because we need to help our members and the private sector to adapt to these new regulations. This is what we are doing. Here you have the seesaw of this market. When we have low supply, the prices went high, and then the people get very enthusiastic and plant more coffee and put more fertilizers and take care of the plantations. And then 2 years after that, you have a huge production, and then the demand is not that good, and then the prices went down. And this is the way that we are managing this sector. In reality, it's not only from the 1990s. This is something, and this kind of movement, it's a movement that we have since coffee started to be a commercial product. This is part of my PhD thesis, and I can say to you that this kind of seesaw and initiatives for having this balance, looking for this balance, is something that we have always, including the quota system was a method used for 3 decades, trying to avoid these kind of things, but we didn't have that. Well, I will not enter into details on that because you can see this in our website. As well, I will not enter into details with these graphics that you also can go to our website and see. What I would like to point out here is the growing in consumption. We are doing a very well business, a very well homework, we can say. And you can see here that the consumption is increasing in green in non-producer countries, but also in yellow, that it is the producing countries. And here, it's not only Brazil. Brazil, nowadays, has a huge consumption. We are the second biggest consumption in the world, but we have also Ethiopia, we have also now many different countries in Latin America, in Africa, and also in Asia. And what you can see over there, it's the highest percentage of increase is exactly in Latin America and Asia. And where we have our highest potential, the green well. It's Asia, that in many countries, they are discovering coffee right now, and with a new strategy. And which are these new strategy? The young people. We are talking about the millennials, and more than the millennials, these Zoomers. Yes. They are the new consumers for coffee. Coffee for these youngers become cool to go to a coffee shop instead of to go to a pub. It's very good for them. It's a generation that's it's not that looking for alcohol beverages, and they have their own concepts and their own values. And this is something that I would like to bring to you. They are the biggest population. They are totally digital natives. They was born with a cell phone. They have months. With some months 3, I already saw some babies with a 5, 6 month old with an iPad, watching some videos or some games and things like this. They are totally digital natives. They are totally in the online trends. They look the things they would like to follow. They have many influencers. They are followers of the influencers, of the digital influencers, the YouTubers, the TikTokers, and in many cases, they buy a very expensive product just to take a photo to publish the photo. But this, it's the first entrance. If they like it, they will continue because they have money. It's a generation that it's making money in their way. They are making money in a very easier way than us as adults. Another point, well-being and vegan products. Coffee is vegan. We are quite good. And we will talk about health during these 2 days here. Well-being, social and mental. Then we have many opportunities with these boys and girls that could be my grandsons and my granddaughters. What more? They are looking for convenience. They don't have any patience to be stuck waiting for something. Time for them, it's like this. This is totally linked to convenience again. And they are learn, this is very important, they are learn about brands and suppliers, looking for their own alignments in diversity, equity, inclusion, belong, sustainable practices. And they are looking for brands that are reliable and trustable. I think, in my opinion, coming from a coffee producing family in Brazil and now as the director of the ICO, we can feel and we can comply with all of these requirements. And so, the world, my conclusion, the world needs and wants coffee. And we, as sector, we as producers, we need you to help us to have the solutions for all of this. Thank you.